Here's another problem I see a lot with wood fence posts that are buried in the ground around concrete, and that is the fact that the concrete around the base isn't sloping. It's usually flat, and sometimes it's actually curving in. We've got to have a slope around the wood posts. And when you say what kind of a slope, hey, anything that would allow the water to run off. A quarter inch per foot. If you have a 5 inch diameter of concrete around the wood fence post, make sure that it's a half inch up at the up against the wood and sloping down towards the soil so this water can drain off. Here's an example of what I'm talking about when it isn't sloping. Usually have something flat, and I'm going to zoom in on this picture to give you a better idea of what we're looking at. But even if you have a quarter of an inch of water, if it's sloping in toward in the wrong direction, realistically this water is going to either be absorbing into the concrete, into the wood, or into any cracks or any space in between the wood post and the concrete footing. So if it's sloping away and you have gaps between the wood post and the concrete, well, realistically, you're not going to, this isn't going to do you much good. But at least it isn't going to trap the moisture. It's not going to allow more water or moisture to go in between the concrete and the wood post. So if it's sloping, it's going to at least pull some of it away. And I like to raise the concrete up a little bit around the wood post also. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. Just a little bit. A half inch realistically will be fine. And whatever you do, you don't need to get carried away, even though I've seen this a few times, and I've even done it myself under certain circumstances. But you don't need to make this thing 2 or 3 inches above the ground level. But you are going to run into some cases where your neighbor's yard has an inch to 3 inches of soil above the fence. So you're going to have on your side, it's going to be 3 inches lower at the fence, and then on your neighbor's side, they're going to have 3 inches more dirt up against the fence. Well, if this is the case, you're going to need to raise the concrete above the highest side. So if you run into a situation like this, you could end up with a footing like this. Now, if you want to, you could always put more slope on the lower side of the fence post and build accordingly. However, I like to just put the fence post in like this if it isn't going to be a problem. If you're building a fence post next to a planter and this thing is going to be encroaching into an area that you don't want it to, then realistically you're going to have to design around that or whatever particular situation you run into. So again, this video is just to give you an idea of some of the problems you'll face if you don't slope your concrete around the fence post, and of course adjust for the soil levels of your neighbor's yard and yours also.